I know that I was able to score 83 in my coursework just because I knew this. My research project involved me having to analyze little pieces of human brain. Lateral thinking is what examiners love to see, and that's how you're going to get your high marks without any extra effort. Because hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica Katanga, and in today's video we're going to be talking about all things intercalation at med school. So I'm going to be telling you what to expect, and more importantly how I got my first and how you can too, and how you can get the most out of this year. So I intercalated in psychology, psychiatry and neuroscience. That was split into two terms. The first term was neuroscience of sensation and perception, which is basically the science and physics of how we see and hear mainly, and also my research project, which I'll talk about more later on. And then my second term were my two big modules. So that was psychology and psychiatry, where we looked at the major psychiatric issues or psychiatric disorders and looked at the psychology and science behind it, and also clinical neuroscience, where we looked at the major neurological problems like dementia, Parkinson's, etc., and went into lots of detail about each one and the research behind it as well. Somebody on LinkedIn asked me about the application process. So if you're watching this, you probably passed that bit, but I think I applied we had the deadline for application was March, and we had to rank the degrees that we wanted to do from favourite to worst, and we had to rank the research projects that we wanted to do from favourite to worst. Luckily, I got my first choice in both of them, so I was able to do something that I'm really passionate about, which is neuroscience. And one major thing is that you're going to have so much more free time than when you do medicine. So for my first term, I went in only for one morning of lectures, and then I went in for labs 2 times a week. And then for my second term, I was in for 2 full days of lectures and then maybe 2 mornings for labs. So a lot more free time, and in that free time I was able to do more extracurriculars and just chill out a little bit more. And I did my intercalating after 4th year of medical school, which is notorious for being kind of the most intense. So I feel really relaxed and re-energized, and I'm really grateful for it. So I would definitely say that that's something you should consider, and that's something you should know before entering the year. You're gonna have a lot more time, but do not be so fooled by the extra time that you have. So you're going to be going into lectures less, but you need to be using your free time in the week to be reading around the subject. So this is my first tip. In the lecture slides, you are going to see they're citing papers. They'll even have a recommended reading slide at the end. Most people just don't even look at that and only just look at the content from the lectures. But if you just memorize, in medical school you have to memorize facts, but that's not the same in this intercalation degree or in biomedical science in general. You have to kind of analyze and read around the subject in order to get that first. So make sure, what I would do after my lecture, I would review the lecture, and then I would read the papers that they had recommended. I just skimmed through it, and then I would make a list of papers. So then I was having a growing list during the term, and then that would be good for when you're wanting to make flashcards, which I'll talk about later on as well. The papers is where they're going to get their questions from, and you need to be able to critically analyze, which leads me on to my next point, is know how to read and critically analyze scientific papers. This is a skill that you do not learn in medical school, but this is a skill that all the other biomeds will know, and I can make a video on that because that is a whole completely separate, really valuable skill. So I can make a video on that if you want to, because that is how you get your first. You cannot get a first without analyzing papers. If you just memorize the paper and maybe quote it, that's fine, but you need to say, is this a reliable paper or not? Why not, etc. Now for the research project, so if you are intercalating, you're going to have to be doing a dissertation, or if you're in your last year of biomed, you're going to have to do a dissertation. This is your research project. Mine was a wet project, so that meant I was in the lab My research project involved me having to analyze little pieces of human brain. I had to wash them, stain them, prepare them with some certain antibodies because I was looking for some certain molecules inside them, and then upload them to the computer with a special scanning software and analyze them. The question I was trying to answer, my title was the molecular characterization of T2 white matter hyperintensities in subjects with varying levels of vascular cognitive impairment. And in simple terms, that just means, so when people get older, they can have vascular dementia, which is a type of dementia caused by interrupted blood flow, should we say. And on their MRI scans, a type of imaging, we see some white matter, which is very bright. But sometimes we see those bright spots of white matter in people who are also cognitively normal. So I had brain samples from both people. I didn't know who had vascular dementia and who didn't, and I had to look for certain molecules in those brain samples. So it was really, really interesting. I learned so many lab skills that I would have never have done if I had not intercalated. So I definitely intercalate, like I would have never touched human brains. Well, I have in surgery, but under a microscope, if I had not done this. So I would recommend intercalating, and I would also recommend doing a wet project so that you can learn those lab skills and you can put that into your CV. Next tip, start writing your dissertation as early as possible. There is no excuse in being a last minute Larry. Like, why put that stress on yourself when you can just organize your time and not stress yourself out, you know? So start it as early as possible, because that means that you can give drafts, you can give pieces of your thing. You can say, oh, I've written an intro, can you please look at this, to your supervisor. That is first going to show that you're really keen and they're going to want to help you more. And secondly, they can tweak how you write. So writing scientifically is completely different to writing normal essays. I thought because I had done an AS level in English literature that I would be fine with essays. But no, scientific writing is a whole completely different skill, and you need as much feedback as you can get in there. And if you get feedback for your research project, then that will also improve your exam writing for the courseworks in each module and for the exam at the end. My lab supervisor was the one who was in charge of my clinical neuroscience module. So for that module, that coursework, I scored 83 just because I knew this trick, because I knew exactly how he wanted me to write. And then for the coursework of each module as well, try to do this as early as possible, and you can give in, if they allow you to give in drafts, yeah, it's just the best. And these are going to be the people who are marking your final exam. So you want to know how they want you to write, and you want to tailor each exam and your writing skill to each lecturer. Okay, so my 8th tip or point is flashcards and mind maps. This is how you're going to revise in your intercalation. Flashcards are what I used during first and second years of medicine, and I swear by, and I've even got that in my study tips video. But this intercalation is a little bit different, because you're not going to just be spoon-fed the information. You also need to have lateral thinking, and what I mean by that is mind maps. Okay, so you need to read around the subject, and that's how your mind needs to go. You need to be thinking about topics here and there, and let me just show you an example of my mind maps. So this is an example: disorders of perception, a lot of lateral thinking. And for example, if we see here, aging as well. And these are all the research papers. So these are the main topics coming off of it. Then these research papers in different color codes. And then perhaps if there's now this aging, and there was an essay on aging, of course aging ties in with example dementia. So then now I have a dementia mind map as well, and I would link those two things together, and that is lateral thinking. Lateral thinking is what examiners love to see, and that's how you're going to get your high marks without any extra effort, because you were going to already remember those research papers for dementia, but then now putting them into your aging essay, it's as if you've done extra reading, but you haven't. It's still the same core material. You can use those mind maps to make essay plans. Make sure you're linking topics across the lectures. And yeah, that's the last thing. So to make sure that you make essay plans before you go into the exam. The way that you know which questions are going to come up, normally they really do repeat the essays that they make, they just tweak it a little bit, is by looking at past papers. So they will give you a list of what has come up in the past, and also just talking to people who have done it before. They're your greatest resources to, you know, what to expect. Just like watching this YouTube video, well done to you, because you're trying to stay ahead of the game. And one more bonus tip, because you've got to the end of this video, is make sure you go and watch my how to get research projects during medical school. So this is really important for your CV, and this year is the best way that you can get that done. And that is how you're going to get the most out of this degree, not only by getting a first, but also by getting some research papers out of it. So I'm linking that just above. So well done for watching this video. I hope you really took some tips. Make sure you're revisiting this video throughout the year so you can keep in mind how you're going to get that first. And just well done for being really proactive in your learning. Comment down below if you have any more questions, if any of these tips you found are helpful, and make sure you subscribe so you can join the winning team, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye.